Hello, everybody. Now, prelims 2025 is approaching, and for this purpose, we are starting. I have told you earlier also, we are starting a new series on current affairs, and we will be covering up current affairs from June 2024 to April 2025, and these current affairs would be in the form of questions. So, proper explanation would be given, and certainly some questions would be asked in your examination, preliminary examination 2025, and that would be too fruitful for you. Earlier already we had a biodiversity session. We had 5-6 sessions on biodiversity. We solved all the previous year's questions and also gave to you new questions. We'll continue that also after this, but let's start with the current affairs coverage of prelims for prelims 2025. And I told you that what is the period from June 2024 to April 2025, and this is the session first. Let's start that. And let's see the first question, relevant questions. The first question. Now, the first question which I have drafted for you is a very contemporary question. Consider the following statements. 810 authorization is one of the most restrictive legislative provisions that bars the US companies from manufacturing any nuclear equipment or performing any nuclear design work outside of US. The second statement is 123 agreements are required for significant transfer of nuclear material or equipment from the US. And third is 123 agreement aimed to enable full civil and military nuclear cooperation between India and US. How many of the above mentioned statements are correct? See, look at the question first of all. If you talk about, you can pause the video and first of all try to answer the question so that it becomes a practice test for you. Now, in 1 week, at least twice we'll meet for contemporary issues and we'll continue like this for the preliminary examination. Now, the first statement is definitely correct. The second statement is also correct. But as far as the third statement is concerned, this third statement is false. And the answer would be only 2. But why? See, as far as the US Atomic Energy Act is concerned, now 810 authorization of the US Atomic Energy Act, and that is of 1954. It states what? It says that US companies can supply nuclear fuel to other countries, like India, for example. And the recipient nation, where it is supplied, should accept certain international safeguards. And this would be for civil purpose, not for military purpose. That's why this statement is incorrect. But 810 authorization bars the US company from manufacturing nuclear installations or for designing nuclear installations. So the first statement is correct. Equipment or installation, the first statement is correct. The second statement is also correct. Why? Because Section 123 of the US Atomic Energy Act of 1954 says that if suppose US companies have to supply nuclear fuel to other nations, the recipient nation should accept international safeguards. If suppose the nuclear fuel is to be transferred by the recipient nation to any other nation, then permission from US would be required. If suppose reprocessing of the spent fuel takes place by the recipient nation, for that purpose also, the US permission would be required. So that's called as 123 agreement. When we, that's India, entered into a nuclear deal with US in the year 2008, we were responsible for signing the Hyde Act. And Hyde Act provides that an exemption is made in the section 123 for India to receive nuclear fuel from US companies, provided it accepts international safeguard and also all the conditions are met. Why we are discussing this question? Why it is relevant? Because India has an ambitious program of small modular reactors, SMRs. And for this purpose, India is negotiating with US companies. But an exemption under the 810 authorization from US is necessary for the SMR ambitions of India. That's the first question. Let's see the second question. I have written all the details. You can take a screenshot of this also. Whatever I have said just now, I have written those details also for you to copy. Next, let's see the second question. Which one of the following statement related to, we'll go in a quick manner because we have to cover a lot of questions. Which one of the following statement related to small modular reactors is incorrect? SMRs have a capacity of 300 megawatt. These reactors harness nuclear fission to generate heat to produce energy. Currently, two SMRs have reached operational stage globally, one in US and the other in Russia. And SMRs can play a crucial role in reducing greenhouse gases emission and supporting industrial decarbonization. Now, what do you think? Which one the statement is incorrect? The incorrect statement is C. Because it's not in US, it's in China. The two reactors which have reached the operational stage, one in China and other in Russia. And definitely they have. A short note on SMR is given. From these three options, you can gather the information. So the two reactors are what? In Russia, the academic Lomosov floating power plant and STRPM in China. These are the two SMR which are functional, which are operational globally now. And India is negotiating with Holtec International, that's a New Jersey based company, for the manufacturing of, designing of SMRs in India. And that would suit India's ambition. Now see the first question as such. Which one of the following statement is incorrect? The current members of EFTA are Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein. B. India has recently signed trade and economic partnership agreement with EFTA. EFTA has developed one of the largest network of free trade agreement, and EFTA secretariat is headquartered in Brussels with offices in Geneva and Luxembourg. Now see, that's in news because recently India signed a free trade agreement with them. And why India signed a free trade agreement, although the member nations are very few, Iceland, Norway. See, first of all, the incorrect option is D, because just the reverse is the case. It has its headquarters in Geneva and its offices are in Brussels and Luxembourg. But the question is, why we are talking about this agreement and what's so important about this agreement? We signed a free trade agreement with these four countries, EFTA. The agreement is called as TEPA, that's Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement that India has signed recently with them. Why? Because we are looking at a long-term goal. A long-term goal, why? Because the Swiss precision technology was used by India's moon mission. And Iceland and Norway have the expertise in renewable energy, which would be helping India in its green transition. And that's the reason why we have signed an agreement, the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement with these nations. It started as a forum in 1960 when a number of nations were a part of it. But then some of the nations, they joined the EU. So currently there are 4 members in EFTA. Clear? 4 members in EFTA. Let's see the next question. Consider the following statements and select the correct one. Expect a question on AI, this preliminary examination. Now, Bletchley Declaration deals with artificial intelligence safety. AI Action Summit organized at Paris recently emphasized on greater access to AI infrastructure, making it more sustainable and diverse. And AI Action Summit organized at Paris was co-chaired by the French President and the Indian Prime Minister. Now, as far as the correct option is concerned? What do you think? The correct option is A, because it was co-chaired by the French president and the Indian prime minister. But there are three action summits which have been conducted so far on artificial intelligence. The first action summit was conducted in the year 2023 at Bletchley. Bletchley is in UK, and 29 nations attended this summit, action summit, and the main theme was what? Safety. The second AI action summit was conducted at Seoul. That's last year, 2024. And a number of companies attended this meet. And the main theme was, the main emphasis was to develop AI in a transparent manner. And look at third summit was conducted at Paris. It was attended by India. AI Action Summit organized at Paris recently emphasized on greater access to AI infrastructure, making it more sustainable and diverse. That's the line that you have to remember. And this is about the AI action summits that you have to know. So all the three options are correct. But remember these things for your examination. Now see, which one of the following statement is incorrect? It appears to be a traditional question, but it's in the news. Why? Let's see. La Nina is one of the three phases of El Nino's southern acceleration. That's correct. In the La Nina, trade wind becomes stronger than usual and pushes larger quantities of water to the Western Pacific. Usually a strong La Nina brings extra rain, resulting in more plant growth, resulting in more absorption of carbon from the atmosphere. And aerosol in general have a warming effect as they absorb more of incoming solar radiation. See, this question is in news. Why? Because despite the La Nina effect that we have, we witnessed a very warm January this year, and the temperatures were 1.75 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrialization level. Temperature enhancement was 1.7, and this is the 8th time in 19 months that the temperature has breached 1.5 degrees centigrade mark. And why we are talking about that? Because the Paris Declaration says that the temperature enhancement of Earth should be less than 2 degrees centigrade at the end of this century compared to the pre-industrialization level. And it would be better if nations adhere to the target of 1.5 degrees centigrade, less than 1.5 degrees centigrade enhancement. So we have breached this mark a number of times, and this is the 18th time in the last 19 months that we have breached this mark. So definitely that's why it is in news, and everything which has been mentioned is correct except the last thing, aerosols, because aerosols in general do not have a warming effect, they have a cooling effect. Why? Because when aerosols is pumped into the atmosphere, they are responsible for scattering the solar radiation first. Aerosols are also responsible for cloud formation, and clouds play a significant role in cooling process. Why? Because 30% of the albedo phenomena is performed by the clouds only. 30% of albedo phenomena is, but the question is that despite we had La Nina in January, why it was warm? Because the La Nina effect which was witnessed was very weak. And because of the clean policy followed by some nations, the aerosol which was pumped into atmosphere was lesser. And that's why a warmer January was witnessed this year, 2025. Let's see the 8th question. Consider the following statements and select the correct code. Biomanufacturing refers to utilization of engineered microbial plant and animal cells with precision and control for producing commercially important products to achieve economies of scale. Bio E3 policy approved by the government recently will scale up efforts in high performance biomanufacturing, and I think that both these statements are correct. Biomanufacturing is also correct, and Bio E3 means that is biotechnology for what? Biotechnology for economy, for environment, and also for employment. for economy, environment, and also for employment. So this policy was started. So both these statements are correct, and given in details of the bio E3 and to promote sustainable uh, circular practice to address climate change, food security, to develop bio-based plants, to build a resilient manufacturing ecosystem, and to accelerate innovation and technology. So that's the policy launched by the government recently. So biotechnology for economy, biotechnology for environment, and biotechnology for employment. There's a term also which is called as biofoundry. I have not mentioned that, but biofoundry means what? That if biomanufacturing is conducted with automation, not with conventional methods, then it's called as biofoundry. Biofoundry. So remember what is called as biofoundry. Remember what is called as biomanufacturing. I've given to you the details. Now let's see another question. Consider the following: R1 Hunyuan Turbo S, Hunyuan T1, V3 ChatGPT. Which of the above mentioned AI models belongs to Chinese technology research company DeepSeek? Now see, as far as the models are concerned, these two models, they belong to a company called Tencent. This model belongs to OpenAI. And R1 and V3, it belongs to DeepSeek. They won't be asking you directly DeepSeek, but certainly the models can be asked as questions. Remember, these are two models which are making the news. And why making the news? Because DeepSeek, when it was launched, it created ripples in the US market, shaving off $1 trillion from big companies like OpenAI, because they found that this was a more convenient model. So the chatbot of DeepSeek is more preferred than ChatGPT of OpenAI. So that is one thing that you have to remember. And remember these two models. As far as Hunyuan Turbo S is concerned, the recently Tencent company of China said that we have developed a more faster, a more efficient AI model than R1 and V3 of DeepSeek. Let's see that. But as far as the question is concerned, the question is R1 and V3. So the option would be what? The option would be C. Clear? 1 and, not 1, yes, 1 and 4. So that's the correct option. Which one of the following statement is incorrect about shell companies? Shell companies, not shell companies. A shell company is one which has active business operations and significant asset. A legitimate reason for this company to exit include the startup that use the business entity as a vehicle to raise fund. The most common reason for a domestic company to set up a shell company is to realize tax haven abroad, and a company that does not, the last statement is, company that does not itself do or own anything but is used to hide persons or another company's activity, sometimes illegal ones, is called a shell company. See, I have said which is incorrect. The first statement is incorrect. This is correct, because the company does not do anything substantial, but the purpose is to hide the activities of other companies, definitely. And sometimes it is used for realizing tax haven abroad. That's all. These three are important elements of shell company. But the first one is why we are discussing, why a question on shell company can be asked. See, there's a person whose name is Santiago Martin. He owns a company, and that company is called as Future Gaming. And this company is important. Why? Because this company was the biggest poll bond donor. And ED has found, let's cut it short, ED has found that this company included more than 300 shell companies where hardly any business is conducted. So it was for the diversion of funds. And that's why this can be asked as question that what is shell company. Let's see the next question. Consider the following statement. The International Potato Centers, South Asia's regional center is proposed to be established at Mandi, Himachal Pradesh. The International Potato Center is headquartered at Lima. The potato crop is endemic in the Peruvian, Bolivian Andes in the South America, and Regional Center of International Rice Research Institute has been established at Varanasi. Now, as far as the correct statement, and I have asked you which one of the above mentioned statements are correct. Only 3 is correct. Why? This is wrong. It would be established at Agra. Definitely, the International Potato Research Headquarters, which deals with research and development in potato, sweet potato, tubers, have been established at Lima. But it has regional centers. One big regional center is in China, Yanging. Now, this caters to the requirement of China and also to the requirement of East Asia. The second big center would be established in Agra, outside Peru. And this would be established in Agra. Why? Because in India, as far as potato production is concerned, UP ranks first, followed by West Bengal and Bihar. And already we have the International Rice Research Institute in Philippines. It has established its regional center where? Varanasi. So these 3 statements are correct. So only 3 would be the correct option. Consider the following statement. Nari Adalats are running on a pilot basis only in Assam and Kerala. Nari Adalats fall under the Women and Child Development Ministry. Nari Adalats are established at the district level. The members of Nari Adalats are called as Nari Sakhis. How many of the above mentioned statements are correct? New question again. All these are new questions for you. How many of the? See, the first. Look at the first statement. This is incorrect. Why? Because it has been established in Assam and not in Kerala, but in Jammu and Kashmir. On pilot basis, is not established. On a pilot basis, it is running in Assam and Jammu and Kashmir. Nari Adalats fall under Women and Child Development Ministry. That's true. Nari Adalats are established at the district level. That's false because established at the Panchayat level. Members of Nari Adalats are called as Nari Sakhi. That is also false. There are 7 to 11 members which are nominated by the Gram Panchayat, and they are not called as Nari Sakhis, but they are called as Nyay Sakhis. उन्हें क्या कहते हैं? Nyay Sakhi. So, you can see that how many of the above statements are correct. First is incorrect, third is incorrect, and fourth is only 1. D would be the correct answer. Fine. And try to solve only standard question, not the test series that you get in the market, because hardly those questions would be asked in your examination. Please understand that. Which one of the following articles of the Indian Constitution stipulates that there cannot be more than 6 months gap between last sitting of an assembly session and the first sitting of the next session? See, the correct option is what? Look at it. The correct option is 174. 1. And why this is in news? This is in news because in Manipur, the opposition raised a question on the governor's role, that why governor is not summoning the session of legislative assembly, and that's why it is in news. See the 14th question. Consider the following statements. Elephants, now this is a question from biodiversity. Elephants have mainly developed a system of sounds to manage reshaping of their herds. Elephants make sound. But what is the purpose of that sound? The purpose of that sound is to reshape their herds, to regroup their herds. The most common high frequency vocalization are the trumpets. That's correct. And this is also correct. Younger elephants produce calls of a lower pitch and older ones produce high pitch calls. Now that's where I would be confusing you, because just is the reverse, because younger elephants, they produce sound of calls of a high pitch and older ones of a low pitch. Mudumalai National Park is home to largest number of elephants in India. That's wrong. It's not Mudumalai, it's Bandhavgarh. Bandipur or Bandhavgarh. Second is Mudumalai. So that's wrong. And first and second statement is correct. So we can see only two would be the correct option. Only two would be the correct option. That's Bandipur, which is having the largest, more than 1,000 elephants are there. Let's see the question. Which one of the following statement is incorrect? The adoption of Article 6 of the Paris Declaration at COP29 represents a renewable focus on market mechanism which can help nations with constrained resources. Article 6.2 facilitates the transfer of internationally transferred mitigation outcomes (ITMOs) between host and partner countries to help countries meet their national determined contribution. And India's NDC includes target of reducing emissions intensity by 50% by 2030 and engaging, that's India's Panchamrit, engaging in ITMO transactions under Article 6.2 gives India the opportunity to meet, its sustainable development goal. See, as far as the incorrect statement is concerned, incorrect is nothing but C, because under Panchamrit you can see 5 elements. This is 45%. 45%. So the INDC that we had earlier, we announced earlier, which was reshaped in the form of Panchamrit, says that the carbon emission intensity would be reduced by 45% by 2030 by India. Earlier it was 33 to 35%, but that has been changed. By 2030, we would be doing that. Carbon intensity of GDP means what? Carbon intensity of GDP means that if emissions enhance, if development takes place, emissions also enhance. So there is a correlation between development and emissions. So this correlation is called as carbon intensity of GDP, because each and every nation, they start as dirty nation. Because development takes place, more carbon emission would be taking place. And do remember that Article 6 of the Paris Declaration deals with the carbon market mechanism. Article 5 of the Paris Declaration deals with the REDD+ reduction of emission from deforestation and forest degradation. See, one question from history. He was arrested in London in 1910 on charges of anti-state acts, and while being brought to India for trial on board the commercial ship SS Moria, he escaped from custody in Marseille, that's in France. His escape sparked a dispute between France and Great Britain, which was settled by the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Who among the following revolutionaries has been referred to in the above lines? And also very relevant to contemporary issue, because the Prime Minister recently visited to this place, Marseille in France, and said that he is very thankful to the activists of Marseille and also the French people for not handling this, for disallowing the revolutionary to be handed to the British, although it was handed later on the order of Permanent Court of Arbitration. We are talking about who? We are talking about V.D. Savarkar. Because V.D. Savarkar was one of the accused. He was said by the British, why should we say? He was said by the British to be the main architect of A.M.T. Jackson, the Nasik magistrate murder. Clear? Although the person was murdered by Anant Lakshman Kanhere, but the main architect, according to the British, was V.D. Savarkar. And it became a dispute between, his arrest became a dispute between France and Great Britain. All these things have been given in his biography, which is in Marathi, Maji Janmathe, which was published in 1927. So this much for today. Every week we will be meeting twice or thrice, and we'll continue like this preliminary examination. Our next batch starts for the environment on April 6th. That's the third batch. If you wish to have more knowledge for clearing, a short batch only, and certainly it would be upgrading you for the preliminary examination. So be prepared for that. But look at the current affairs continuously. Thank you so much.